Vertigo tells the story of a detective called Scotty, played by James Stewart. He has a severe case of vertigo. Oh, and the title actually confused people for decades. Thanks to this film, people for years believed that vertigo was the fear of heights, which it isn't, that's acrophobia. Vertigo is the sense of whirling and loss of balance, usually looking down from a great height. Use it correctly!
That's what I was going to do.
And it costs the death of a policeman, leading to Scotty retiring. Okay, how the hell does a film in 1958 have better green screen effects than some movies in the 80s? This actually is a pretty solid opening, I have to give it that.
Really?
He attempts to get over this irrational fear with the help of his friend, who also happens to be his ex. An ex being a friend. So unrealistic.
There's nothing to it.
Meanwhile, a friend asks Scotty to follow his wife Madeline, believing she's in danger. Despite retirement, Scotty eventually agrees and notices odd behaviour, especially when she takes a liking to a deceased woman who's also in a portrait at a museum. This woman in question previously committed suicide and is now possessing Madeline from beyond the grave. Just go with it.
No, I don't think so.
It turns out that the deceased woman is called Carlotta, who just so happens to be Madeline's great-grandmother. She was the mistress of a rich married man. She even had his child, but he cast her aside. But Madeline is completely innocent, not remembering anywhere she visits on certain days until she attempts suicide but is saved by Scotty.
Well, you fell into San Francisco Bay.
After jumping in. They soon fall for one another as she begins to remember the events where she's taken over by Carlotta before she sadly falls off a tower to her death, ruled as suicide. Scotty becomes catatonic from the trauma, eventually visiting the places that Madeline went until he finds a woman that he thinks is her, despite looking completely different. It turns out that this woman is called Judy, but she is the real Madeline. Okay, so this bit gets really confusing, just bear with me here.
No.
So Madeline's husband Gavin wanted to take advantage of Scotty's vertigo, so he hired Judy to impersonate his wife and to pretend to be possessed. As you do.
I wouldn't know how.
And to then swap Judy with his wife's real dead body to frame a suicide, or preferably frame Scotty for the murder.
Right.
Scotty then starts dating Judy, but is still obsessed with Madeline and even asks her to change her clothes and hair to look more like her. She even obliges to this. Why would you ever agree?
I know, that's what everybody tells me.
But it turns out that Judy was actually Gavin's mistress and was cast aside just like Carlotta, realizing he must reenact the entire event to cure his madness, believing that Madeline and Judy are now the same person. He does manage to conquer his vertigo at the top of the tower again as she begs for forgiveness out of love until... well, to me it looks like she clearly jumps off, but apparently it's an accident and she falls. But then he's shocked when she falls! What the hell did you expect to happen? You dragged her up there! What a happy ending!
Why?
The film is actually an adaptation of the French novel Dans les Morts, translated as From Among the Dead. Hitchcock had previously attempted to purchase rights for other novels by the same authors but failed. Some claim that this one was specifically written with Hitchcock in mind, but the authors denied it. Due to the director's interest, Paramount worked on a synopsis in 1954 before the book had even been translated to English. The review of Judy's involvement was made right at the end of the book, but Hitchcock wanted it midway so the audience could truly understand her mental dilemma. This was the scene where she writes a letter to reveal her husband's plan, but Hitchcock actually deleted the scene and it was nearly released without it. It wasn't until head of the studio approached Hitchcock that it was put back in.
Idiot!
Vera Miles was originally going to play Madeline, but Hitchcock felt ill, delaying things, and then Miles herself fell pregnant and had to step away from the part. This was when Kim Novak was cast, though she had other film commitments, but Vera Miles had her baby in time and was now free. But the director went with Novak anyway, though he later said that was completely the wrong decision to make. Ouch.
It's not very complimentary either.
Novak was allowed to shoot the film as a compromise if James Stewart could star in Bell, Book and Candle. Even then, Novak and Hitchcock had problems when she asked the director what her motivation was, and Hitchcock replied, "Let's not probe too deeply into these matters, Kim. It's only a movie." Delightful.
Sorry I wasted your time.
But she also refused to show up to work one day demanding more money. Her boycott even worked, and she got a pay rise. I've got to try that! Filming took place between September 1957 to December in San Francisco, California. It was this film where Hitchcock made dolly zoom techniques famous, having the camera physically move away from the subject, whilst also zooming in at the same time, or the same but in reverse. This effect allows the subject to keep its size, but the background's perspective changes. There was actually an alternate ending where Scotty and his friend ex-Midge are enjoying a drink together, looking out the window in silence. Jeffrey Sherlock of the US Production Code Administration claimed that it was done to indicate that Gavin could be brought back for trial after the murder. However, Hitchcock fought to drop it, but the scene's footage wasn't discovered until 1993, 35 years later. Vertigo premiered in San Francisco on May the 9th, 1958, and despite it earning $2.8 million, only just earning a profit against its budget, it made a lot less than Hitchcock's other productions, though it was soon lost and not available for 3 decades due to the rights of the movie. This, along with 4 other films, weren't re-released until 1984. This film showed Hitchcock's mastery, but was far too long and slow for what is basically only a psychological murder mystery. Hey, it wasn't just me!
You have got it bad, haven't you?
I admire the scenery, but the plot is too long and it bogs down in a maze of detail. That's what I'm saying!
You think I'm making it up?
I admire the excitement, action, romance, glamour, and the crazy offbeat love story.
Oh, it sounds idiotic, I know.
The secret of the film is so clever, even though it is devilishly far-fetched.
No, Judy, you don't understand.
It's a wonderful weirdie. Hitchcock has even more fun than usual with trick angles, floor shots, and striking use of colour. More than once he gives us critical scenes in long shots establishing how he's going to get away with a couple of story tricks.
How do you know?
Hitchcock has never before indulged in such far-fetched nonsense.
God have mercy.
In England, the reception was, if anything, rather less friendly. Of the 28 newspaper and magazine reviews that I have looked at, 6 are with reservations favourable, 9 are very mixed, and 13 almost wholly negative. Common to all these reviews is a lack of sympathy with the basic structure and drive of the picture. Even the friendlier ones single out for praise elements that seem, from today's perspective, to be marginal virtues and incidental pleasures. The vitality of the supporting performances, the slickness with which the car sequences are put together. Or, we just didn't like it.
Does complicate the problem, doesn't it?
However, over the years, the film rose to fame. Sight and Sound ranked it the 2nd greatest movie ever made, only behind Citizen Kane, but later was picked as number 1. And as the 60s rolled around, it was this film that got Hitchcock more recognition as a serious artist. Hitchcock is a director who delights in getting his plot mechanisms buffed up to a nice humming shine, and so the Sight and Sound team praised the one film of his in which this is not the case. It's all loose ends and lopsided angles, it's plumbing out on display for the critic to pick over at his leisure.
Could be.
Total Film ranked it the 2nd greatest movie in history, only behind Goodfellas, while Empire picked it as the 40th, the American Film Institute picked it as the number 1 greatest mystery film and 9th overall, Entertainment Weekly called it the 19th best film ever made, and Premiere picked its poster as the 3rd best in history. By the way, this is actually the first movie in history to ever use computer graphics. How cool is that? The film is fine, I guess. I mean, I know it's loved everywhere and it's a cult classic and it's perfectly well made. I think it's just an acquired taste, but a lot of it just drags for me. There's the scene where he's trying to overcome his vertigo, so he slowly starts stepping up chairs to build confidence, but it goes on for an eternity. And they shift from a relatively normal story to, by the way, she may be possessed by a supernatural demon of a dead mistress chick, and it comes right the hell out of nowhere.
Do you believe that someone out of the past, someone dead, can enter and take possession of a living being?
No.
If I told you that I believe this has happened to my wife, what would you say?
Well, I'd say take her to the nearest psychiatrist.
My kind of guy.
Scotty, I need a friend. Someone I can trust. I'm in a panic about this.
I'm supposed to be retired. I don't want to get mixed up in this darn thing.
Yeah, now you know how The Undertaker feels. But a lot of it is telling, not showing. We hear about murders or suicides, but we don't see them outside of the main two. It's just telling stories. It's well made for its time, but to today's standards, it really hasn't aged very well. Honestly, I don't really feel like I know these people. I should. Scotty goes through some horrible experiences, and yet I feel nothing. It's just sort of there. And the love story I can't get behind. This is clearly a backdrop of the city behind her, but still, for its time, it's a pretty cool shot. And I love 50s movies where the houses and apartments clearly don't look like real houses or apartments, but are so obviously just a set. I wrote that in my notes, then looked it up. Turns out this is actually a real apartment that still stands to this day. Okay then. Look, I love James Stewart, he's great, but I swear he acts the same in everything! Look at these clips from entirely different movies and try to tell the difference.
And after what happened this afternoon, I should think maybe you'd call me Scotty. What was Mrs. Hayward wearing? I'm shaking the dust of this crummy little town off my feet. I introduced them to Harvey. And he's bigger and grander than anything they offer me.
You see? He's got one emotion. But at the end, to his credit, he does flip and turn insane. Look, he can do different emotions. He goes completely sinister, dude. It's brilliant. Should have happened half an hour ago. And weirdly, there's moments where Madeline completely vanishes into thin air. And obviously at the time, we're like, oh yeah, she's a spirit. But this is later proven to be false. So this makes no sense. Even the first attempted suicide scene, it's all charming and relaxing, and then boom, suicide! The film does have a knack for having one tone and quickly shifting to another at complete random. Oh, and she's instantly unconscious even though she was only there for a few seconds. By the way, they said that Scotty and his friend X went to college together, but James Stewart is clearly at least a decade older than her. Come on now.
Madeline, tell me.
No.
Madeline, tell me what it is. Where do you go?
No, I
what
can't
takes you
tell
away?
you.
When you jumped into the bay, you didn't know where you were. You guessed, but you
I didn't
know.
jump. I didn't jump. I fell. You
Why
told
did
me
you
I
jump?
fell.
Why did you jump?
No, I can't tell you.
Why did you jump? What was there inside that
No,
told you to
please.
jump?
Please.
What? What?
Please don't ask me. Please don't ask me.
He already did. Dozy cow. But listen to this, none of it is consistent.
Shouldn't have brought me here, you know.
Literally moments later.
You could have looked in my car. Oh, but then you didn't know my car, did you?
No, I knew which one it was. It's right outside here now, but I didn't think you wanted to be taken home that way.
No, you're right. I'm glad you didn't take me home. I wouldn't have known you.
What? But the story itself, I don't know, I just can't get invested. She talks about her out-of-body experience and I'm just bored out of my mind. They even describe a dream in great detail and it's so dull. Do something! Then they go to court and talk about her memory loss. And I'm not someone who always needs like explosions and car chases. I love so many Hitchcock thrillers, but hardly any of this film actually interests me. Then I guess they run out of ideas because James Stewart falls asleep and enters a Dumbo dream sequence.
Look out, look out. Racism on parade, here we go. Racism prejudiced, we're here. And there is racism everywhere. Look out, look out. They're racist all of the time, but fight PewDiePie, hippie hypocrisy.
I guess it looks kinda cool, but what the hell were they on? He even goes insane and I don't give a poopy.
Listen, I'm going to yell in a
Listen,
minute.
I'm not going to hurt you, honest, I promise.
I'm just gonna bore you senseless. Just read the script. And genuinely, most of the damn film is people being quizzed on their damn memory. Get on with it! Oh, and we get this epic music playing as they scale the tower at the end, but there's no dialogue! Why do people not talk in intense situations like this? Awkward meeting ever. Stop, please, just say something. And even after she dies, again, the film still goes on. What else is there to cover? And I don't even quite understand the point of it being called Vertigo. I mean, his Vertigo came into play at the end, sure, but it didn't really change much of the story. It's a pretty random subplot.
One final thing I have to do. And then I'll be free of the past.
I have to murder you and dispose of your body. I don't hate the film. It probably should be seen for what it's accomplished and it's decently made and acted. I just think it's unnecessarily stretched out and painfully boring at parts. A film that just wasn't for me. Great Scott, Robbie! Arthur? What? I am not Arthur! Okay. Doc Brown? That's right, I am the great Dr. Everett Brown! Great Scott, Martin!
I think we just made it in time, Doc.
Who the hell are you?
We're from the future.
Oh, the past! Oh no, timeline this is.
But Doc, what are you wearing?
Never mind about that now! We're from the future! And I am here to warn you of the great danger that awaits you!
What are you talking about?
It has been 10 years since you started reviewing awful movies, and now a decade later, Rob, the movies are fighting back! You need to stop yourself and change your destiny. Just over there, I have created a time machine out of a DeLorean, and you need to go back in time and stop yourself from creating this show. Only then will all of this madness end.
So you're telling me, because I talk shit on the internet, serial killers want me dead?
That's right!
Okay then.
That's it, Rob! Let's go into this time machine! We must reach 1.21 gigawatts and travel at 88 miles per hour!
Oh, you got a real time machine. It's a real time machine. So I'm gonna go and sit in there, go 88 miles an hour, and I'm gonna travel through... Okay. Why not? Wow.
Okay, so just here you want to put the date of where you want to travel in time to.
Okay, then we're gonna travel through time, yeah?
It's never gonna work if you don't take this seriously!